Hey, it's James here. And if you're not having one-to-ones with your employees, then you definitely want to watch this video. And if you are having one-to-ones, but you do it maybe only once a month or once a quarter, and they're very performance-based, then also definitely tune into this, because one-on-ones, when they're done correctly, is one of the most powerful tools that you have in your arsenal as a leader. And so I'm going to walk you through, like I said, a framework and how to do that. But really, I can't stress this enough. One-to-ones, they're like an anchor in your leadership. And when you're consistent with them, you're going to see amazing things happen with your staff. So let me go to some slides here and walk you through this. But before I even get into this framework, understand that one-on-ones is a fantastic place for you to build trust between yourself and your employees. In fact, without trust, you don't have influence, right? Also, it's where we're going to help our staff grow, because coaching on the fly doesn't always make it. It's also where we're going to help employees feel aligned and purposeful about their work, which is going to increase their intrinsic motivation. It's a place for us to give them specific feedback and to help them make adjustments, which also helps increase intrinsic motivation. And just setting the time aside communicates that they're a priority. Like, a mistake a lot of people make is they want to do one-to-ones, but then they keep canceling on their employee, and that just sends a message like, you're really not that important. And so we want to be consistent, and that makes people feel like, hey, I mean, they know you're busy, right? They know you're busy, and so when you carve out that time for them, it absolutely makes a difference. And then lastly, it just helps communication from an organizational point of view. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this structure. Now, how long should you take in your one-to-ones? Well, that's up to you. But what I've noticed is that a lot of people who teach on one-to-ones, it's always they're trying to condense it, get it done as fast as you can. And the question is, why? Why are we rushing this? Like, why are we rushing one of the most powerful moments that you have as a leader? And I get it, right? Because everyone's busy. But I'm telling you, when you do one-on-ones correctly, it's actually going to save you a ton of time, because people are going to be more engaged and they're going to be more productive. So let's break this down. So if I talk a little bit about this first section when it comes to one-on-ones, and basically when you have a one-on-one, back to the question about how long should these be, I think a good one-on-one is going to be no less than 30 minutes long. And when you see the different things I'm going to talk about here. And hey, if you can't have 30 minutes for each of your staff members like every other week, then yeah, maybe you have to find out like what needs to get off of your plate so you can do that. I mean, unless you're, have 20 direct reports in manufacturing or something, and then I'll get to that in a moment. So let's just talk about this first section. Actually, let me just bring them all up and we'll walk through them. So this first section actually goes fairly quickly, but there's 4 sections to it. There's a check-in, there's agenda, like yours and mine, in the know, it's about communicating, and wins and positive news. So the check-in is really, that's where you have a chance just to check in with the employee. Hey, how are you doing? It's that personal time. It's where you are genuinely interested in them as a person, in their life, what they're doing, how they're doing, things like that. And we don't want to rush that, right? That's not a 20-second conversation. And so one-on-ones give you that opportunity to just slow down and make space there. It's in these moments, these conversations, that actually our relationships deepen, and that's important. Then agenda, yours and mine. It goes a little bit like this. Hey, so let's just create an agenda for our one-on-one today. What are some things that you want to make sure we cover? And I'll tell you some of the things that I want to cover. And they might say something like, well, I want to take holidays in 3 weeks, so I just want to chat about that and build the agenda. Then in the know really is about, what do you know that maybe they don't? In other words, you're at meetings that probably they're not at, and this gives you a chance to circle back and think, what have I heard that I forgot to tell to them? No, maybe there's nothing, but this is just a checkpoint to make sure communication is passing through. And then wins and positive news. So I'll start one-on-ones with this in this section to say, hey, so let's just talk about, since we last met in the last 2 weeks, what would be some wins, positive news, just from your world, from a work perspective. And the reason I ask that is because people so quickly want to dive into problems, right? They just want to go like, okay, but this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. But first, let's stop for a moment. Hey, what's good? Tell me what are some wins? And also it helps me understand what they consider to be a win, right? So I want to hear from them. And then we jump into performance. Now, this is where a lot of one-on-ones focus, and they only focus here. Now, this is an important part of the one-on-ones, right? It's where we are able to take a look at their progress, whatever KPIs that they're responsible for, or if you're using OKRs, if they're responsible for a key result, how are they doing? Let's talk about the progress on that. And this is where we're going to give them feedback. Is there any obstacles? Do some problem solving. Do some coaching in terms of how they are, doing there. And also part of that is just, hey, how can I help? And so that's an important moment, obviously, because that's where accountability conversations happen. That's also where we are giving them that feedback that helps them then alter their course if they need to. But this is a key moment when it comes to creating intrinsic motivation in people, right? Because everybody needs goals to go after, but we also need to know how we're doing. And so you're going to weigh into that. After we get done talking about their performance progress, we also want to create some space to talk about learning and development. And so this is where you get into coaching in terms of what is it that they're working on. Now, we have a whole course on being a coaching leader, so I can't go into all of that now because it'd be way too long of a video. But basically in this section, this is where we turn to, okay, so, hey, I know you've been working on X, Y, or Z. Give me an update. How is that going? And this doesn't mean that you're the teacher in this moment. You don't have to teach anything. You're just the catalyst to bring up the conversation. You're the accountability point to make sure that learning is still happening. It's also a good chance for you to share some of the things that you're learning, right? Because that helps promote this idea of we have a learning culture here, right? We're supporting and promoting that growth mindset. So carving some time out for learning and development, that's super key. Then we go to our agenda items. Now, some of these you can move, you can move agenda items before learning and development if you want. That's not really that important if you change these in order. But the agenda items, you might have already crossed a lot of them off through your conversation about performance. But if there's any that are left unchecked, then you just deal with them really quickly. Like, okay, so you want to take vacation in 3 weeks. Hey, that's not a problem. So fantastic. Go ahead and book that and just, whatever, put it on the team calendar. And so you just deal with the agenda items quickly. And then talk about next steps. And this is more of a, okay, so leaving this meeting, as you think over the next 2 weeks, as you leave here, what is your main focus? Like what's going to be the main commitments that you're making? And this is a great moment where we're tying together everything and we're asking them to make a commitment of what is it that you're going to be focused on over the next couple of weeks. And you definitely want to remember what it is that they say, right? So after your one-to-ones, you definitely should keep some notes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to end on a high note. How do we do that? This is where we're going to give feedback. We're going to dole out either praise or appreciation. Basically, think of it in this way. Every one-on-one should end on a positive note, even if it's been a really difficult conversation. Like maybe the employee is on the verge of being fired. And so in the one-on-one, you're talking about performance and you're coaching because you're trying to help them out. But even in that kind of setting, we want to end it on a high note. Now, the high note might be something like, "Hey, I know this has been a tough talk today. I know I know this isn't a great situation to be in, but also I've seen you in the past pull things together or work really hard. I know you have this in you, and so I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this." Right? So that would be an example of leaving it on a high note, even if it was a really difficult one-to-one that you're having. And then after the one-to-one is over, like I said, make sure that you make some notes about anything that came up that is noteworthy, right? About the progress, certainly about the learning and development, and what were the next steps. Because those notes are going to be important for you when you go back 2 weeks from now and have your next one-to-one with them, and then you're able to review before you go in. So do you see how powerful this kind of a structure can be? And again, the mistake a lot of leaders make is they have a one-to-one and it's only performance-based. It's like a 15-minute check-in. Hey, let's talk about your performance. And that needs to happen, but so much more can happen in these one-to-ones that actually help you build an amazing high-performing culture. Now, I want to say one last thing, and that is that if you have a lot of direct reports, like more than 10, then it can be difficult to have individual one-to-ones. Well, one of the things that you can do is you can create triads where you have a one-to-one, but it's more like a 1-to-3 or a 1-to-2, and you group people together. And you can still have really effective moments like this, but maybe there's 3 employees at the same time who have similar job function, similar responsibility level, and you're able to do your 1-to-3s or 1-to-2s, and it's going to help you have those touch points with everybody. All right? So that is the thing on one-on-ones. The last thing I'll say is make them a priority, right? Don't miss them. They should end on a positive. I mentioned that already. You can also precede with some questions in the invitation if you want to bring up a certain topic with them. But all of this helps an employee move to the right on the motivation scale. And the motivation scale is about how do we create more intrinsic motivation. Okay, excellent. Listen, go ahead and try out one-to-ones, because as you carve out the time, you'll find the time, and then you'll notice a massive difference in your leadership, in the way your people respond to you, and all of that is a good thing. It's a win-win situation.